Very good evening, an hour of sporting chat. Before you feel too sorry for us here on this sultry summer's evening, actually we've got beautiful crisp air conditioning in this studio, so do not feel sorry for us at all. We're a lot cooler than you are where you are, in a temperature sense anyway. Talking of cool, we've got a guest tonight who's just met the Pope, and of course we have James Gregg here in the second half, who's a personal friend of the England cricket captain Joe Root, and what a sensational first test for him, or first day of a first test as captain of England today. James knows him very well. We'll have a further chat about that in part two. Meantime, Matt Hamshaw, good to welcome you back, the Rotherham United first team coach. Your title has changed since you were here before, Matt. It's been upgraded actually.
Yeah, it has, yeah, it has. Really interesting change for me personally, going from academy to first team, but something that I'm really enjoying at this moment in time.
And congratulations on that. And Liz Byrnes, all-round sports journalist, see you in press boxes around South Yorkshire and elsewhere, but actually that's not all, is it? It's not just football for you. It might be here. We need to broaden our horizons. So you do what? What other sports?
I do swimming, I do cycling, and I've certainly done some athletics as well.
Right.
But a lot of travel with swimming and yes, some interesting times.
Okay, some interesting times. So which one of us then has just met the Pope? It's not me, by the way.
No, it's not me.
It's not you either.
That'll be me then.
That'll be you. You've just met the Pope.
I've just met the Pope.
All
yes.
Right. I'm so impressed. I shook your hand earlier as well. You know.
Yes.
Have you watched it? Since?
Since you shook it.
How long ago was that, by the way?
It was a fortnight ago.
Just
a little under a fortnight ago. Yes.
Okay. All right, well, we'll come to that in a bit, because, you know, it's the kind of thing that keeps people hanging 100%, on, isn't it, really?
It's something that I'm interested in.
Yeah, very much so, yeah. We've got a couple of pictures as well.
Yes.
Yeah, we all know what the Pope looks like, but it's just in his little audience with the Pope. So some pictures of that coming up. Meantime, let's all talk football, because we do that on a weekly basis. And it's just started to hot up a bit on the transfer front, hasn't it? You know, it certainly has at Rotherham. I mean, you've made, what, 4 or 5 signings?
Yeah, we've made 5 signings so far. We'll still be looking to bring 1 or 2 more in, but we're really pleased with what we've got so far. Added to what we believe is a strong nucleus. We obviously lost Danny Ward, which were a good move for Danny, but obviously disappointing for us to lose him. But onwards and upwards, and the lads we've brought in look like they've had a good quality to the group. So so far, pre-season wise, it's going really well.
The expected, really, sale of Danny Ward, his contract was extended, or it was triggered in order to preserve his value. So you got a fee from Cardiff, and you've used the proceeds of that.
Yeah, 100%. And Danny were excellent for the football club. With regard to, he probably could have kicked a stink up more than he did around the Christmas time when we did have a few bids, but fair play to him, he wanted to keep the club up, and you know, he's been rewarded now come the end of the season with a good move to Cardiff. But fair play to him, you know, we made him captain, Paul Warne made him captain, and you know, he represented us as a human being first and foremost, but his performances were really good, and we wish him all the best in his move to Cardiff. He
was very professional, We'll look at the Sheffield United and Sheffield Wednesday transfer dealings, of which there have been some. George Boyd, talk about that as a signing for Wednesday. Who else they might go for, I mean, you and I don't know, so we'll maybe kick that one around. But certainly Richard Stearman today signed by Sheffield United. That looks excellent. Before we come on to all of that, Liz, Rotherham United, you know, you'll have seen them as I did, and they were that close in so many games to getting either a point or a win, but it was always just that close, wasn't it? I
just found that there was now, you know, the heads went down, and you know, it becomes a losing routine as much as it becomes a winning routine, doesn't it? And it sort of made me wonder, you know where the belief was. And you know, it was a difficult time, a really difficult season to
when
watch.
You're getting hammered every week. You know, hammered by the defeat rather than actually hammered. You were in some games, but not in many, actually, were you?
It was difficult. There were 2 games which stick out in my mind, QPR and Cardiff, where we just weren't good enough. But then, majority of the games, it were fine margins. And fair play to the players, you know, they really kept their heads up, they kept going. They stayed strong until the end. It'd have been easy, and you see it many occasions where players down tools, but you know, we certainly felt that we got a positive reaction from the group. Now we've as we mentioned earlier, we've brought us new recruits and we really hope that spirit that they had, even in a losing situation, we can turn around into a positive one come 5th of August when our season starts.
Hopefully, because it's got a lot going for it as a football club, with the infrastructure, the ground, the backing of a great chairman. I mean, who wouldn't want to work with Tony Stewart?
Yeah.
He's up there as one of those chairmen that managers were looking at and thinking, I'd like to work with him.
Yeah, he's a fantastic man, he's a fantastic character. He's done unbelievably well for the football club. He's invested again this summer in a training ground which the manager's been pushing him for, and he's come up trumps again. And you know, you can't really speak high enough of him. He is Rotherham United. He's brought the club back to the town, which is obviously great, being a local lad first and foremost, but for the fans in the area. And really, you know, a lot, well, everything is down to him in this modern time for the club. So yeah, he's a great man.
Pre-season training, Liz, I bet you're like me that you're glad you have no part of it. I mean, there are plenty of times when I think, oh, I wish I could have been a footballer. I wish, certainly with the wages, etc. But at this time, well, in fact, I once did a day's pre-season training with Sheffield Wednesday when Howard Wilkinson was manager, so I know what it's all about. But yeah, I'm glad not in this weather, crikey. Yeah.
No, you know, it seems like only yesterday, doesn't it, that the season actually ended? You know,
yeah.
I mean,
so close.
It was
short.
What, 6 weeks or so, is it? No, well, 2 months, 8 weeks. The season actually ended, and I mean, presume they can't just go out and do absolutely anything in that 8 weeks.
Well, they can.
Well, can they?
Near enough.
But come back, you know, completely unfit, or do they have to come back ready to go?
Yeah, well, I think certainly the days of lads just going away and doing nothing has totally gone out the window. Sports science plays a massive part of it, and every player has a programme which they have to adhere to. All our players were tested first 2 days, which I know a lot of people hear a lot about testing, etc., but it kind of sets you up and galvanises you for your pre-season, so you can see where players are. So it's not just a case of now lads leave and go away and do what they want.
No, they get punished for it later.
Yeah, they have a set routine which they must adhere to, and if they don't, certainly our football club, and I'm sure it's the same over the country, that they get punished if they're not up to the levels that they should be. Yeah,
Alan Neil was saying exactly the same, sitting exactly where you are last week, and he said they'd all come back and hit their targets. No names, no pack drill. Have all of yours come back having hit their targets?
Believe it or not, they have. Yeah, I know it's easy to sit here and say that, but yeah, genuinely we've been really impressed with where they are at this moment in time. They've worked extremely hard so far this week. We fly out to Austria pre-season on Sunday for a week, so that'll be some more hill running and training for them over there, which sounds exciting.
You can find that. You can find those here. You don't have to go to Austria to find them flying the hills. You were telling me earlier that today, in terms of running, you've done 10 lots of 400 metres. Hey, is that right?
Yeah, that was afternoon session.
Oh right, that was not.
Yeah, no. So they've had a really they've had a tough week this week.
400, because 400 metres, giving it everything.
Yeah.
And then doing 10 of them.
Yeah, that's what they've done today, and for the first time, really. I know when training starts, generally, certainly as a coach now and an ex-player, you want to be out there, but this afternoon in that heat, I was glad I was just stood there with a stopwatch saying go.
God would. So you were blowing and they were blowing out to somewhere else. Right, okay. We'll come to Liz's story of the Pope shortly. I'm just going to leave you teasing on that one a little bit. Sheffield United have made a signing today that, you know, they've been accused unfairly of, oh, you're not signing Championship players. But actually, they've got quite a lot of Championship players anyway. And today, they've signed Richard Stearman, who's as proven in the Championship as they come, central defender, ex-Fulham and Wolves. What do you think of that?
I think it's a very good signing. It's a good bit of business. I feel that you have to have players in that division who have experience. Obviously, Chris and Alan did an exceptional job last year at Sheffield United. And they're kind of on a crest of a wave at this moment in time. So I think to have that experience around players who have had a great season and got that togetherness already will only benefit them.
Yeah, I mean, he comes in and presumably you'd expect that he's gone pretty much to the top of the wage scale and maybe pushed it slightly through the ceiling. You would think to get a player like that. I don't know, but it just goes to show that horses for courses.
Yeah,
you pay for equivalence.
When you bring a player in who has that experience and quality, there's a certain amount that you have to pay for it. Listen, it might be that they've got an extremely good deal, and fair play to them if they have. But I'm sure it'll be a good signing for them.
Yeah, and they made several. That's 5 signings that they've made, and I think possibly a couple more on the way list. Would you have thought? I mean, you see a lot of Sheffield United. How well prepared do you think they're going to be for the Championship?
I think it's such a, as we were saying earlier, that I mean the Championship is, to me, it's just so unpredictable, so completely unpredictable that you can't. I think it was 2015-16. Huddersfield finished 19th. Go up the following season.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think it's so hard to judge, but also because United come off that at the end of that fantastic season. Where they almost got quite cavalier at the end, didn't they? And the football and the belief was fantastic. Yeah. So I think he's sort of adding to that, isn't he? He's augmenting that. But I think today's signing was interesting because some of his other signings and the ones that are projected are attacking, even though, like an attacking defender. I think Ender Stevens, he's an attacking fullback, isn't he?
And so is George Baldock as well. Yeah. Obviously, they signed Ched Evans. But you'd think that all round that squad's going to be better. How do you see it as a first season? Because a first season can carry you further than you might think you can go, because of the build-up and the momentum. Yeah,
100%. I think that due to the fact that you're there because you've got promoted, that brings the group together. You've obviously been successful, so the players within that unit have played majority of the games, and Sheffield United have carried them across. There comes a difficult situation where when you recruit, you have to bring the right characters in, because you don't want to cause unrest in the change room. You don't want to pay over the odds for a player, because a player who may have done it year before could demand that wages, so that's where it can become difficult. But the first season, when you get in the Championship, like you just said, it's so unpredictable. But the size of the clubs in that league, every game you go to is like, with no disrespect to Berries and Rochdales, but you're going to Aston Villas, you go into like massive clubs, and the unpredictability of it is just, it is the second Premier League now, really. There's no big divide. The clubs, if you see the spending in the Championship, it compares with most major European leagues. So
it's become as big a jump going from League One to the Championship almost as from Championship to Premier League.
Yeah, 100%.
Hasn't it really? Sheffield Wednesday. Fairly quiet, but that's because they've got a good squad anyway. You're an XL. Yeah. You'll be looking for them to do well, particularly that now you're not competing with them in any way in the coming season.
Yeah, I think they've got an extremely good squad. I'm sure they'll add to that. Some of the names being branded around sound really interesting. Some high-profile names there. I think the disappointment that they've kind of had the last 2 seasons should stand them in the good stead. I'm really pleased that they kept Carlos. I think that he's the right man to do the job, and I'm sure this year that you'd really expect them to be pushing the top of the league.
George Boyd is the one signing so far. Crikey, we all know what he can do, Liz. I mean, proven or what?
Well, it seems to have been met positively from everywhere, doesn't it? That signing, he's proven to be a Premier League player, choosing to, I think he chose to come to Wednesday rather than extend.
Yeah, he could have had a year at Burnley. He's got 2 here, so. Yeah.
So it just seems that it's interesting. They're also getting a winger who can unlock the opposition, and that's what they've identified they need to do to maybe go automatic.
What do you think, George Boyd, the player?
I think he's a fantastic signing. I think that people always look at his attacking prowess, but there is no player on any pitch I've ever seen where he isn't covering most kilometres. So in terms of his work rate, I'm sure he's a player that the fans will identify with straight away, the way he works hard. But like Liz just said, the quality he has when he goes forward, he'll be a real key asset, I should imagine, in that squad.
He can be very inventive, can't he? And he can unlock tight games, which is what you need in the Championship, because there are so many tight games. One drawback, but it's not levelled as a drawback at George Boyd, he's not noted for pace. Do you think that that is an ingredient that Sheffield Wednesday still need? Certainly most supporters think so. I happen to agree with them on this one.
I think pace is something that every team needs. Certainly if you look at the teams who are at the top end of the championships, in and around the playoffs and end up getting promoted, they all have pace in the team. So I think that'll be something that obviously through this window still going on. I know you said they've been relatively quiet. I'm sure it'll be something they'll look to identify and bring players in who can give that injection somewhere on the pitch, because it doesn't half take you up the pitch if you need to. If you're under pressure and you can turn a defence, you've got somebody who's willing to run, you know, it can almost turn the momentum of a game in an instant.
When you're trying to play a game out as well, if you're 1-0 up, the likes of Jermaine Johnson, who they had, you know, and Michael Antonio could take that pressure off in one 40-yard run, you know, and really just change the game. Yeah, like you're saying.
100%, and I would be surprised if they didn't identify that, but I'm sure it's something that they'll be working and looking to bring the right people in.
As for names, it's just conjecture and rumour, but I always go on how persistent a name is linked. And if it's linked, for instance, Jordan Rhodes, I began to believe that was on, and that instinct proved right in the end. The name of Robert Snodgrass has been there for a long time now, a matter of weeks, and you would have thought that if there was no interest or no attempt to get him, it would have disappeared by now. So I'm thinking, whether they get him or not, there is an interest and an attempt. Would be a hell of a signing, wouldn't he? Hey, Robert Snodgrass.
I think it'd be a great signing from West Ham. I mean, he had such a good time at Hull. You know, scored a lot of goals as well, didn't he? You know, he turned games. He was pivotal in that promotion side, and when they got up as well. So I think it'd be a great signing, a really good signing.
No, I 100% agree. He's a talented player. I don't really think the move to West Ham has really suited him, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. I think, like you've just said, he almost kind of galvanises the team. Where at West Ham, I think there's probably too many of those players around him, whereas at Hull, for example, he stood up and, you know, everybody looked towards him. And I think if Sheffield Wednesday were to manage to get him, I think he'd be that player again.
Do you think you would be tempted by a move back to this part of the world? It depends how much a player psychologically wants to play, rather than just be a bit part, shadow squad man.
Yeah, I think that sometimes, for whatever reason it is, if you get a move, it just doesn't seem to work. And for me, Snodgrass to West Ham just hasn't worked, really. And I think that when you get into that situation, sometimes you want to go and play and prove your point. Certainly I did as a player. Everybody's different, but you'd like to think that he would want to play, and it's a great opportunity for him, should it arise, to go and play there.
He's not old, 29 or something like that. Would be hugely expensive, and I think for that reason, you know, wages-wise, etc., a lot of people are thinking, hey, we'd love him, but that can't happen. But again, I come back to the fact the name has been constantly there for week after week, even though logic says, that's a bit of a tall order. It's just still there. Plus centre-backs who they're looking for, 2 or 3. And a link, Tom Lee's persistently linked with a move to Burnley. Now, I can understand that from Burnley's point of view. Michael Keane going, big expensive transfer to Everton. So they need to replace him. Tom Lee's seems logical to me. I don't know. You don't know any more than I do.
No,
about it,
I have no idea, but I know Tom Lees is a good player, and it wouldn't surprise me if Premier League clubs were taking an interest in him.
And Sheffield Wednesday would presumably want to hold on to him, but a lot depends on what the player feels about going into the Premier League, you know, and it can't all be one way at Sheffield Wednesday. They're a buying club. They haven't sold anybody really for 2 or 3 years, which shows the level of commitment by the chairman, Dapon Chansiri. We still haven't got round to the Pope. We've kept him waiting. We have to keep him waiting to part 2. That's all right, because in part 2, James Gregg can talk about Joe Root, from knowing him very, very well. And you, from knowing him, well, for 5 seconds or so, can talk about His Holiness Pope Francis, who seems a thoroughly nice bloke, I have to say. Did you form that impression?
It was a fleeting impression. It was a fleeting meeting, but he was very warm, yes.
OK, that's great to hear. So it's very warm everywhere, including here now, despite the air conditioning. Do rejoin us in 5 minutes. Hope to see you then.